The Velthrian Empire's colossal war fleet emerged from the void like nightmares made real. 50 massive dreadnoughts, each the size of a small city, materialized at the edge of Earth's solar system with engines that glowed like dying stars. Their hulls bore the scars of 1,000 conquered worlds, and their weapon arrays hummed with barely contained energy. Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominion's Wrath, his 6 eyes scanning the primitive blue world ahead. His elongated skull housed a brain that had overseen the destruction of 17 civilizations, and his clawed hands gripped the command console with practiced confidence. Behind him, dozens of Velthrian officers worked at stations that pulsed with bioluminescent controls, their pale skin reflecting the eerie light of their technology. "Pathetic," Vexthor hissed, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. The holographic display showed Earth's orbital infrastructure in embarrassing detail. Crude space stations held together with metal rivets, fusion rockets that belched primitive exhaust, and communication satellites that looked like children's toys compared to Velthrian quantum networks. His tactical officer, a younger Velthrian, named Kilmax, approached with data tablets clutched in his 4-fingered hands. "Commander, our deep scans confirm initial assessments. This species has barely crawled out of their gravity well. Their most advanced vessels use chemical propulsion with basic fusion assists, no energy shields, no quantum weaponry, no dimensional capabilities." Vexthor's mandibles clicked in amusement. "How refreshingly simple. What about their population centers?" "Concentrated on a single planet, sir. Approximately 8 billion individuals scattered across landmasses. They appear to be carbon-based bipeds with remarkably short lifespans. Their technology suggests they achieved spaceflight only recently." Admiral Morketh entered the bridge, his massive frame casting shadows across the command center. Unlike other Velthrians, Morketh bore ritual scars from campaigns across the galaxy, each mark representing a species that had dared to resist the Empire. His armor was crafted from the crystallized bones of the last Zephyrian defenders, and his weapon harness contained trophies from dozens of conquered worlds. "Status report," Morketh commanded, his voice deep enough to vibrate through the ship's superstructure. "Admiral, the target species presents no significant threat," Vexthor replied smoothly. "Standard subjugation protocols should achieve compliance within hours. Their space-based assets are laughably primitive, and their planetary defenses appear non-existent." Morketh studied the tactical displays with the patience of a predator. "Interesting. No orbital defense platforms, no asteroid fortifications. Most species at least attempt some basic perimeter security." "None detected, sir. Their lunar installations appear to be simple mining operations. No military significance whatsoever." The Admiral's scarred features twisted into what might have been a smile. "Then we follow standard procedure. Demonstrate our superiority, broadcast surrender terms, and begin processing. The Empire's expansion schedules must be maintained. Shall I target their largest population centers, Admiral?" "No, that would be wasteful. Their lunar colonies will suffice. Destroy enough to show our capabilities, but leave the majority of their infrastructure intact. Dead planets serve no purpose to the Empire." Commander Vexthor activated the fleet's weapon systems with ceremonial precision. The dreadnought's plasma cannons began charging, their energy cores drawing power from miniature stars contained within magnetic bottles. Targeting computers locked onto 3 lunar mining facilities, calculating destruction patterns with mathematical certainty. "All ships, prepare for demonstration bombardment," Vexthor announced across the fleet channel. "Target coordinates locked. Fire on my command." The plasma beams lanced through space like spears of concentrated starlight. They struck the lunar surface with devastating precision, vaporizing rock and metal instantaneously. The mining colonies disappeared in brilliant flashes, their destruction visible from Earth as new stars briefly illuminating the night sky. Immediately, human communication channels erupted with panicked chatter. Radio waves filled with desperate voices calling for evacuation, military commanders shouting orders, and civilian broadcasts begging for divine intervention. The sounds of fear and confusion filled the Velthrian bridge, exactly as expected. "Typical response," Kilmax observed. "Fear, disorganization, and inevitable surrender requests should follow within the hour." But then, Something extraordinary happened. The chaotic radio traffic suddenly ceased, replaced by an eerie silence that stretched across all frequencies. For several minutes, no human transmissions reached the Valthrian fleet. Then, cutting through the void with crystal clarity, came a single message that would change everything. Message received. Preparing reply. The transmission was brief, professional and utterly calm. No panic, no pleading, no desperate attempts at negotiation. Just acknowledgement and preparation. On Earth, Defense Minister Jiho sat in a command bunker, buried 3 kilometers beneath the Korean peninsula. His weathered hands moved across controls that had waited 30 years for activation. Around him, screens displaying the real capabilities of human civilization flickered to life. Colonel Minho coordinated the awakening of defense networks that officially didn't exist, while Captain Soyoung began transmitting coded instructions to installations the aliens somehow couldn't detect. Deep space monitoring stations beyond Pluto's orbit came online, revealing humanity's true reach among the stars. The Valthrian Empire had just made their first and final mistake. 3 kilometers beneath the mountains of South Korea, General Hyunwoo's fingers danced across a control panel that hadn't seen light for 3 decades. The massive underground facility hummed to life around him, its corridors stretching for miles in every direction. Automated systems that had been sleeping since their installation began their awakening sequence, and the general's weathered face reflected the glow of displays showing humanity's hidden arsenal. Project Damocles is online, reported his aide, Major Jinsu, as he watched readouts cascade across multiple screens, all ghost stations responding. The aliens still can't see them. Hyunwoo nodded grimly. The ghost stations were humanity's greatest secret, a network of weapons platforms disguised as space debris, scattered throughout the solar system over the past 50 years. Each one looked like nothing more than a tumbling asteroid or defunct satellite, but contained enough firepower to level a city. Meanwhile, Admiral Ji-yeon stood in the command center of Titan Station, a facility that didn't exist on any official records. Through reinforced windows, she could see the swirling clouds of Saturn in the distance, but her attention was focused on the holographic displays showing fleet movements beyond Neptune. The Valthrian scanners were impressive, but they were looking for technology they understood. They couldn't detect colonies built with principles that their science deemed impossible. "Admiral, the outer colonies are reporting full readiness," announced Commander Hyemin from her position at the communications array. The Valthrians passed within 1,000 kilometers of Colony 7 and didn't even slow down. Colony 7 was home to 15,000 humans living in a habitat that existed partially outside normal spacetime. The Valthrian sensors couldn't detect it because technically it wasn't entirely there. Human scientists had been experimenting with dimensional technology for decades, always preparing for the day someone might come looking for Earth. Lieutenant Yunji stretched in her cramped station aboard the research vessel Scientific Promise, a ship that looked like it belonged in a museum. Its hull was patched with visible welds, its solar panels were inefficient by design, and its communication array used technology that was deliberately 40 years out of date. To any alien scanner, it appeared to be exactly what its name suggested, a peaceful research ship studying Jupiter's moons. But beneath the deliberately primitive exterior, the ship housed gravitational manipulation arrays that could bend space-time itself. Lieutenant Yunji monitored readouts that showed nearby asteroids being slowly, invisibly accelerated. The process took hours, but when complete, these space rocks would become weapons of unimaginable destruction. "Captain Seokjin," she reported through the ship's internal communication system, "the Valthrian fleet is maintaining their predicted approach vector. They're not even bothering with evasive maneuvers." Captain Seokjin emerged from the ship's hidden command center, where banks of quantum processors calculated trajectory solutions that wouldn't be possible for another century by official human standards. His calm demeanor masked the excitement of finally using technology that had been theoretical for so long. "Perfect," he replied, settling into his command chair. "Their arrogance is our advantage. Begin Phase 2. It's time to show these invaders what human engineering really accomplishes when we stop holding back. Across the solar system, other ships that appeared to be fleeing refugees began subtle course corrections. The Veilthrians registered these movements as panic responses, civilian vessels desperately trying to escape the advancing fleet. They had no way of knowing that each evacuation ship was actually a weapons platform, carefully positioning itself for maximum tactical advantage. Commander Dahyun commanded one such vessel, the transport ship New Hope, which supposedly carried 10,000 evacuees from Earth's lunar colonies. In reality, the ship's passenger bays had been converted into launch tubes for humanity's most advanced missiles. The life support readings that Veilthrian sensors detected were completely real. They just came from hidden military crew quarters, rather than civilian cabins. The aliens are maintaining formation perfectly, Dahyun observed, watching her tactical display with professional satisfaction. They're so confident in their superiority that they're not even conducting proper reconnaissance sweeps. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Kangmin, monitored the charging systems of weapons that officially didn't exist. "Ma'am, our dimensional torpedoes are at 70% charge. The Veilthrians won't see them coming until it's too late." Dimensional. Torpedoes were humanity's answer to energy shields. Instead of trying to penetrate alien defenses, they simply bypassed them by traveling through folded space. The weapons would materialize inside enemy ships, making armor and shields completely irrelevant. Throughout the solar system, strange energy readings began emanating from seemingly empty regions of space. The Veilthrian sensors detected these anomalies, but dismissed them as solar interference or natural cosmic phenomena. Their computer systems had been programmed to ignore readings that didn't match known technology patterns, a fatal oversight when facing an enemy that specialized in making the impossible look routine. Deep space monitoring stations that appeared on no official charts began tracking the Veilthrian fleet with instruments that could measure quantum fluctuations across dimensional barriers. These stations had been built in secret, their construction disguised as asteroid mining operations over the past several decades. Colonel Sunwoo coordinated the awakening of humanity's true space fleet from his command post on Ceres. What the Veilthrians saw as crude mining vessels and simple transports were actually the most advanced warships ever constructed. Their real capabilities had been hidden behind false sensor readings and deliberately inefficient design signatures. The sleeping giant was stirring, and the Veilthrian Empire was about to discover that humanity's greatest deception wasn't hiding their weaknesses, it was hiding their strengths. The first asteroid struck the Veilthrian scout ship Razor's Edge at 97% the speed of light. The impact released energy equivalent to 1,000 nuclear warheads, instantly vaporizing the kilometer-long vessel and creating a brief new star in the darkness of space. The shockwave rippled outward, buffeting nearby ships and sending debris, cascading through the Veilthrian formation. Admiral Morketh's confident expression vanished as he watched his forward scouts disappear one by one. These weren't crude missiles or primitive projectiles. These were chunks of rock, moving at velocities that should have been impossible to achieve. The tactical display showed incoming trajectories that curved through space like guided weapons, but the objects were clearly natural asteroids. "How are they achieving such speeds?" Morketh demanded, his clawed hands gripping the command console hard enough to leave marks in the metal. Science Officer Gixenal's elongated fingers trembled as he worked frantically at his analysis station. Sweat beaded on his pale skin, despite the ship's controlled environment. "Admiral, the readings are impossible. They're using controlled gravitational fields to bend space-time itself. The asteroids aren't just accelerated. They're riding waves of compressed space." "That's theoretically impossible for their level of technology. Sir, our models suggest it should be impossible for any civilization. The energy requirements alone would need the output of multiple stars." What Gixenal couldn't know was that humanity had solved the energy problem decades ago. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, massive gravitational generators had been disguised as mining stations. These installations had been slowly, carefully moving asteroids into strategic positions for 30 years, building up potential energy that could be released in devastating kinetic strikes. Captain Young-ho gripped the controls of his ship, the dancing shadow, as it weaved through the Valthrian formation like a ghost made solid. To enemy sensors, his vessel appeared to flicker in and out of existence, sometimes solid enough to fire weapons, sometimes translucent enough that enemy beams passed harmlessly through its hull. "Phase shift complete," announced his navigator. Lieutenant Sung-hee, as reality solidified around them inside the enemy flagship's shield perimeter. "We're inside their defensive grid." The Valthrians had no concept of dimensional phasing technology. Their shields were designed to stop physical and energy attacks from outside their perimeter, not weapons that could materialize inside their defenses. Young-ho's ship unleashed a barrage of quantum torpedoes directly into the flagship's engine core, each weapon existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously to ensure maximum damage. Major Sun-hee coordinated the attack from her command ship positioned above the galactic plane, watching the battle unfold from an angle the Valthrians hadn't even considered defending. Her fleet of stealth vessels had approached from above the solar system, using the sun's gravity well to mask their approach. When they struck, it was from a direction that Valthrian tactical doctrine declared impossible: target their command. "Vessels first," she ordered her squadron leaders. "Remember, we're not just fighting them. We're teaching the galaxy what happens when someone attacks Earth." Her weapons weren't designed merely to destroy enemy ships. They were built to create psychological impact, to fill enemy survivors with the kind of terror that would spread throughout their civilization. Quantum disruptors didn't just disable Valthrian vessels. They caused them to phase in and out of reality, creating the horrifying spectacle of ships existing and not existing simultaneously, while their crews experienced the agony of dimensional displacement. Commander Tai-hyung led a formation of ships that appeared to be nothing more than civilian transports, fleeing the battle. But as Valthrian pursuit vessels closed in for easy kills, these helpless ships revealed their true nature. Hidden weapon bays opened to unleash swarms of hunter-killer drones, each one equipped with artificial intelligence sophisticated enough to adapt to enemy tactics in real time. The drones moved with inhuman precision, their tactics constantly evolving as they learned from each engagement. They didn't just attack. They studied their targets, analyzed weaknesses, and shared information across the entire swarm through quantum communication links. Within minutes, they had developed countermeasures for every Valthrian defensive system. "Sir," screamed the Valthrian tactical officer, as his displays showed impossible readings. "The human drones are adapting faster than our computers can track. They're learning our weapon signatures and developing immunities." What the Valthrians didn't understand was that humanity had been preparing for this kind of warfare for centuries. Every human conflict, from ancient battles to modern cyber warfare, had been studied and analyzed. Military theorists had spent generations developing tactics specifically for fighting technologically superior enemies, because humans had always assumed that when the aliens came, they would have better weapons. The answer wasn't to match alien technology. It was to fight in ways that alien minds couldn't comprehend. Humans had learned warfare from the most cunning, ruthless, and creative enemy in the known universe: other humans. Every tactic used against the Valthrians had been tested in human conflicts first, refined through actual combat experience against opponents who understood deception, misdirection, and psychological warfare. Captain Min-jun commanded a squadron of ships that had been deliberately damaged before the battle began. These vessels limped through space, trailing atmosphere and debris, appearing to be crippled survivors trying to escape. Valthrian commanders, following standard doctrine, moved to capture these helpless vessels for interrogation and intelligence gathering. The moment Valthrian boarding parties attached to the human ships, they discovered the trap. The damaged vessels were actually elaborate bombs, their life support systems replaced with antimatter charges. The explosions didn't just destroy the Valthrian boarding craft, they created expanding spheres of annihilation that consumed everything within their radius. Across the battlefield, similar deceptions unfolded. Human vessels that appeared destroyed suddenly came back to life, revealing that their damage had been carefully staged. Ships that seemed to be fleeing turned out to be leading enemies into kill zones. Even human distress calls were tactical weapons, designed to lure Vaelthrian forces into vulnerable positions. The Vaelthrian Empire had conquered 17 civilizations, but they had never faced an enemy that treated warfare as an art form rather than a mere tool of conquest. Other species fought to win territory or resources, but humans had perfected the science of total victory through any means necessary. As Admiral Morketh watched his fleet dissolve around him, he began to understand the terrible truth. Humanity hadn't been hiding primitive technology behind advanced facades. They had been hiding advanced psychology behind technological restraint. Admiral Morketh's massive frame trembled as he watched his fleet disintegrate before his eyes. Ships that had conquered star systems were being picked apart like insects, caught in a spider's web. The tactical display showed his forces scattered across the solar system, each group isolated and methodically destroyed by human forces that seemed to anticipate every move. "Admiral," his communications officer Zektar called out, his voice cracking with panic. "The Iron Fist just went dark. That's our third dreadnought in 10 minutes. Morketh's scarred features twisted in disbelief. The Iron Fist had been his most heavily armored vessel, its shields capable of withstanding direct hits from antimatter weapons. Yet somehow human attackers had penetrated its defenses as if they didn't exist. His tactical officer, Commander Velnox, studied the battle readings with growing horror. "Sir, they're not trying to drive us away. They're studying our weaknesses while they destroy us. Look at these attack patterns. Each strike is more precise than the last." The display showed the terrible truth. Human forces weren't engaging in random combat. They were conducting experiments. Each attack tested different. Vaelthrian systems analyzed response times and catalogued defensive capabilities. The humans were treating the battle like a laboratory, with Vaelthrian ships as test subjects. Colonel Minji commanded her stealth squadron from the bridge of the Silent Hunter, a ship that existed in a state of quantum uncertainty. Her vessel flickered between dimensions, making it impossible for Vaelthrian sensors to maintain target locks. She watched the alien fleet's increasingly desperate maneuvers with professional satisfaction. "Their formation discipline is breaking down," she observed to her second-in-command, Major Donghyuk. "Fear is making them predictable." Her stealth ships had been mapping Vaelthrian positions for hours, collecting detailed scans of their technology while remaining completely invisible. Each human vessel was equipped with quantum analysis arrays that could decode alien technology in real time, identifying weaknesses and broadcasting that information to other human forces. Captain Jinwoo's research teams worked frantically aboard the modified carrier Knowledge Seeker, processing the flood of data streaming in from the battlefield. His scientists weren't just analyzing Vaelthrian weapons and shields, they were reverse engineering entire technological systems while the battle raged. "We've cracked their shield harmonics," announced Dr. Heun, her fingers dancing across holographic displays, transmitting new frequency data to all combat units. Within seconds, human weapons began modulating their output to match Vaelthrian shield frequencies. Energy barriers that had protected alien ships for millennia became useless, allowing human weapons to pass through them like they were made of paper. But the most devastating blow came when the humans demonstrated the true scope of their preparation. Admiral Morketh, desperate to salvage something from the disaster, opened communication channels to transmit surrender terms. The Vaelthrian Empire had never been defeated, but perhaps negotiation could save what remained of his fleet, human. "Forces," he transmitted on all frequencies, "we are prepared to discuss terms of withdrawal. The Empire offers tribute and trade agreements in exchange for cessation of hostilities." The response came not from the battlefield, but from Earth itself. Defense Minister Jiho's voice carried across the void with chilling calmness. "Admiral Morketh of the Vaelthrian Empire, we've been tracking 17 Vaelthrian worlds through quantum signatures. This ends with Earth's victory, or with your civilization's extinction. The bridge of the Vaelthrian flagship fell silent. How could primitive humans know about their homeworlds? The Empire's colonies were scattered across the galaxy, hidden behind layers of security and deception. It should have been impossible for anyone to locate them all. Admiral Chae-Yong stood in the command center of Monitoring Station Alpha, a facility that didn't appear on any human records. For 40 years, her teams had been conducting deep space surveillance, tracking quantum signatures of every alien civilization they could detect. The station itself existed in folded space, hidden from conventional sensors by the same dimensional technology that powered human stealth ships. "Confirmed lock on all major Velthrian colonies," reported her chief analyst, Commander Jamin. "Our deep space probes have been monitoring their worlds for 3 decades. We know their population centers, their industrial complexes, and their defensive capabilities." The truth was even more shocking than the Velthrians realized. Humanity hadn't just been preparing to defend Earth, they had been preparing to wage total war across the galaxy. Stealth probes launched decades ago had mapped every Velthrian system, analyzed their technology, and identified critical vulnerabilities. Captain Wu Jin commanded one of humanity's most classified vessels, the Event Horizon, a ship capable of traveling through folded space instantaneously. His mission had been simple. If Earth was attacked, he would carry weapons to every enemy homeworld simultaneously. "Sir, targeting solutions locked for all 17 systems," reported his weapons. "Officer Lieutenant Suyon, dimensional torpedoes ready for deployment." The dimensional torpedoes weren't just weapons, they were nightmares made real. Each one existed in multiple realities simultaneously, making them impossible to intercept or defend against. When they detonated, they would create cascading quantum failures that could destabilize entire star systems. Back on the Velthrian flagship, Admiral Morketh stared at his tactical displays in growing desperation. His fleet was down to 30% strength, and human forces showed no signs of slowing their assault. Worse, long-range sensors were detecting massive energy buildups at the edge of the solar system. Human reinforcements were arriving. "Sir," whispered his science officer Gixnell, "our deep space monitoring stations are reporting similar energy signatures near our home systems." The humans, they're already there. The full scope of human preparation became clear. This hadn't been a defensive response to invasion, it had been a carefully orchestrated trap, decades in the making. Every alien civilization that had ever made contact with humanity had been studied, analyzed, and prepared for. The Velthrians had walked into a war that humans had been fighting since before first contact was made. Commander Hyejin coordinated the final phase of the operation from her position aboard the command vessel, Inevitable. Around her, displays showed human forces throughout the galaxy, moving into position around Velthrian worlds. Each enemy planet was surrounded by stealth ships that had been waiting in the void for years. "All units report ready," she announced to Defense Minister Jiho. "We can begin simultaneous operations across all enemy systems on your command." The message was clear: surrender immediately, or watch every Velthrian world burn simultaneously. Humanity had escalated beyond conventional warfare into something that defied comprehension. They were prepared to wage war across multiple star systems at the same time, treating entire civilizations as single tactical problems to be solved. Through overwhelming force, Admiral Morketh realized that his empire hadn't just attacked a planet, they had awakened something that viewed galactic warfare as routine as humans once viewed planetary conflicts. The war ended not with a final battle, but with complete and total surrender. Admiral Morketh's flagship limped away from Earth's solar system, carrying only 12 survivors from what had once been a fleet of 50,000 Velthrian warriors. The proud admiral who had conquered 17 worlds now trembled as he transmitted humanity's terms to the Galactic Council. In the Great Assembly Hall of Nexus Prime, representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered to hear Morketh's testimony. His once magnificent armor was scorched and dented, his ceremonial weapons replaced with crude medical devices, keeping his damaged body functional. When he spoke, his voice carried the hollow echo of absolute defeat. "Honored Council," he began, his words barely above a whisper, "I have witnessed something that challenges everything we believed about the nature of warfare and civilization itself." The Zephyrian delegate, Ambassador Thexmol, leaned forward with interest. His crystalline features reflected the chamber's ambient light as he studied the broken Velthrian commander. "Surely you exaggerate, Admiral. No single planet could defeat the Empire's full fleet." Morketh's laugh was bitter and haunted. They were containing themselves. Everything we saw was camouflage designed to hide their true capabilities. Their primitive technology conceals weapons that could unmake reality itself. He activated a holographic projector with shaking hands, displaying footage from the battle that would haunt galactic civilization for generations. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as human vessels phased through dimensions, as asteroids moved at impossible speeds, and as Veilthrian dreadnoughts simply ceased to exist when touched by human weapons. "Look at this," Morketh continued, his voice growing stronger with desperate urgency. "These humans don't just fight wars, they orchestrate the complete destruction of their enemies across multiple realities simultaneously. They had weapons positioned around our homeworlds before we even knew they existed. The Corithian representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, pulsed with disbelief. This is impossible. Our scouts detected only basic fusion technology and primitive space habitats, because that's what they wanted you to see." Morketh slammed his fist against the podium, the sound echoing through the vast chamber. "They've been watching all of us for decades, studying our weaknesses, preparing for wars we didn't even know were coming." On Earth, President Dongyun stood in the Blue House's Situation Room, surrounded by advisors and military leaders who looked remarkably calm for people who had just defeated a galactic empire. Through secure quantum communication links, his words reached every corner of the galaxy simultaneously. "Fellow civilizations of the galaxy," he began, his tone carrying the weight of absolute authority, "recent events have forced us to reveal capabilities we had hoped to keep hidden. We prefer isolation and peaceful development within our small region of space." His image appeared on screens across thousands of worlds, from the crystal cities of Altair Prime to the floating habitats of the Vegan Collective. Every major civilization stopped their normal activities to listen to the human leader's words. "However," Dongyun continued, his voice hardening with unmistakable menace, "those who mistake our restraint for weakness will discover why a species that spent millennia perfecting ways to destroy themselves is uniquely qualified to destroy everyone else." General Hiram worked systematically through her shutdown procedures, deactivating weapons systems that officially didn't exist. The orbital platforms disguised as space debris powered down their reality-warping generators. Gravitational manipulation. Arrays hidden throughout the asteroid belt returned to standby mode. Dimensional weapons platforms that existed outside normal spacetime faded back into their hidden dimensions. "Phoenix Protocol complete," she reported to the Defense Council. "All Doomsday weapons secured and reclassified." Admiral Wusung recalled his deep space fleets from positions around alien homeworlds, ships that had been waiting in the void between stars for decades. These vessels, capable of traveling through folded space instantaneously, had been humanity's ultimate insurance policy. They disappeared from their positions around Veilthrian colonies, like shadows melting at dawn. "Ghost Fleet recall successful," he announced, all dimensional vessels returning to hidden bases. Commander Seonho compiled final battle reports in secure facilities buried deep beneath Earth's surface. Her teams catalogued technologies that would remain classified for at least another century, weapons and capabilities so advanced that even humanity's allies couldn't be trusted with their secrets. "Sir," she reported to her superiors, "we've documented 17 new breakthrough technologies developed during the engagement. Recommend immediate classification at Omega Black level." The quantum communication networks carried whispered conversations across the galaxy as word spread about humanity's true nature. Species that had considered Earth a backward planet suitable for eventual colonization quietly cancelled their expansion plans. Trade routes were rerouted to avoid human space entirely. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to establish new protocols for dealing with humanity. After 3 days of heated debate, they reached a unanimous decision that became known as the Terror Doctrine. Under no circumstances shall any galactic civilization initiate hostile contact with the human species. Ambassador Vexakira of the Centaurian Republic summarized the galaxy's new reality in her final address to the Council. "We have awakened something that was content to remain hidden. The humans have shown us mercy by returning to their isolation. We must ensure that no one is foolish enough to disturb them again. Earth's orbital platforms resumed their disguise as primitive space stations. The advanced fusion drives were replaced with crude chemical rockets for public display. Communication arrays reverted to broadcasting simple radio signals that suggested a species just beginning to explore space. But throughout the galaxy, every civilization's deep space sensors remained focused on that small blue planet, watching for any sign that humanity might be stirring again. Long-range monitoring stations detected the continued presence of human vessels at the very edge of their sensor range, a constant reminder that Earth's guardians were always watching. Captain Hyunsu commanded one of these eternal sentries, his stealth ship drifting in the void between star systems. His mission was simple but crucial: ensure that the galaxy never forgot the price of waking humanity. "All quiet on the galactic front," he reported during his weekly transmission to Earth. "Command, the neighbors are behaving themselves." The new cardinal rule of galactic civilization had been established through overwhelming force and maintained through careful restraint. Leave humanity alone, and they would remain content with their small corner of space, continuing their masquerade as a simple, developing world. Disturb them and face the complete extinction of everything you held dear. The end.